All right, so I'm going to start with our spirit guides. So when it comes to our spirit guides, the main thing to understand with this concept is, in my belief, it is that spirit guides are a manifestation from God or God source energy that is taking the form of whatever it takes the form of. So if we say I need a spirit guide for, or if we say I need to start, I don't know, or I want to start connecting with my intuition more. So you'll have a spirit guide that comes down that starts to help you with connecting with your intuition. Now, the spirit guide will most likely look like someone that relates in your mind to intuition. So when you think of intuition, this spirit guide is most likely going to look like someone that you would think is good with intuition. So that guide comes down. There are other guides. There are ascended masters that come down and help you with things. There are guides that have never reincarnated. There's guides that have reincarnated, and we have many different guides that come down to us throughout our journey. So in the beginning of my journey, I do bright light protection every single day, multiple times a day. But I would stand in my living room in the morning and I would do bright light protection. And that is where you imagine a bubble of bright white light surrounding the body and the energy and keeping you safe from, or keeping you protected from feeling others' energy or taking on anyone else's energy or allowing anyone to steal your energy. And so I would do my protection in the morning and my grounding, and I would ask for my spirit guides to come down to me. And there was, in the beginning, I mean, I've only been doing this for like a month at this time. In the beginning, there was 3 spirit guides that I would be able to see in my imagination that would come down and stand in front of me. And one day, one of those spirit guides started to blink. Like their whole body was just like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And it was just kind of pulsating. I was like, well, that's extremely weird, and I don't know why. I asked my teacher. She's like, I have no clue, basically. You know, they're trying to tell you something, and you'll find out eventually. And over like a few day period, that spirit guide started to blink, and it started to blink faster and faster. Each morning it would be blinking and pulsating faster until one morning I asked for my spirit guides to come down, and it was only 2, and that spirit guide was gone. And I was like, well, what the heck? I like that spirit guide. Where's she at? And whatever. So fast forward a couple days after that, I went in and I did protection. I was getting used to my 2 guides that I had there. And all of a sudden there was a third, and I was like, whoa, what's this? And I looked, and it was this really creepy nun-looking lady. And I was like, whoa, I was like, you know, who are you? And I thought she was something bad that was trying to come down or something. But so I started talking to her, and she was like, I'm here to help you understand I think it was the Bible or something along those lines, or religion, I think is what it was. And I was like, but I don't want to know religion. Like, I'm not interested in religion, and nothing against religion. If you go to church, do all that, that's perfectly fine. It's just not for me. I'm just not into it that much. But she said that I needed to learn about it, and I was like, okay, that's fine. So I started to, at this time I was working in factories, and I would travel from factory to factory each week. And I was in my home factory, and this guy came up to me, and he was like, hey, not many people know this, but I'm a Jehovah's Witness, and God's telling me to come over and talk to you about the Bible. And I was like, no, come on, guys, I don't want to sit down and learn about the Bible. And but I talked to him, and I was like, yeah, I'll reach out for sure, with no intention to reach out at that time. So then that next week I went to another factory, completely separate, and this guy comes over to me, a completely separate guy, and he's like, hey man, how are you? And I'm like, I'm good. And immediately I already knew what was coming. And he was like, well, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, and God's telling me to come over and talk to you about the Bible. And I was like, gosh, man, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to have to. So anyway, and I just laughed at that time and told him that he's the second person, so I'm just going to have to do it. So I didn't do it still, and then I just read, I listened to audiobooks about the Bible and stuff like that, and just started to do my own research, and ended up learning a lot about it. But then that left me with the question of why. Why am I led to do that? And I ended up meeting a neighbor across the street that was going to help me with this business venture of creating this business and stuff. The other door of that door. There you go. It's weird.
I'm a little challenged. It's fine.
It's all good. How are you?
Good, how are you?
You're perfectly fine. I'm glad you all made it. All right. So, anyway, I started talking with this neighbor, and I said one thing about chakras, and she was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! That's the devil's word," and all that, and was like really off-putting by it. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I had to I had to understand where she was coming from, and I had to understand a lot about her beliefs and stuff in order to make this thing work. So that's just kind of one example of how they will come down and help you with a certain situation. As of right now, when I call down my spirit guides, I have many different spirit guides, and in the beginning, and I think I go through this at some point as well, I'm kind of just going off the top now, but I'm going to get back to my notes in a second, but in the beginning, I started getting confused because there were so many spirit guides that were coming down to me and talking to me, and I just didn't understand who was for what. So I just said, I want all of my spirit guides to just be a glowing being of light. I don't want you to look like this or that. I just want you to be a glowing being of light and come and help me. So I did that. And as time went on, I started to realize that I needed to make these different guides because I needed to know who was for who, or who was for what, and so on. So now when I call in my guidance spirit guide, I feel this energy that comes in from over here, and I see this lady. If I ask for my connection guide, which helps me to connect with spirits and things like that, she will come a little bit further back and over here. If I ask for my channeling guide, he comes from over here. My protection guide comes from my left shoulder. So I just say that to give the example of how you'll feel their energy in different places within your energy field, because it's not always, and I want to say it's different for everyone, but it's not always just close your eyes and the spirit guide's right there and you're able to just talk and communicate. Sometimes it comes across as a feeling that someone's there. You don't see them, you don't hear them, but you know they're there, and you can have this conversation with them, and you can. There's like this unspoken communication that happens, and you just understand what's going on and what advice they're giving you. So anyway, spirit guides, tons of different types of spirit guides. Like I said, there's past loved ones, which are. So my father-in-law passed away, and it was like this tragic passing, and it was just terrible, and everybody was like, why? It was a month before our wedding, and it was just this terrible situation. And after the wedding, after everything started settling down from that, I ended up awakening and coming into my spirituality, and every single psychic teacher, person, or anybody that I talked to was like, I have this curly head guy here that is like thinks he's funny, and he's like laughing, and he's like making jokes, and that was my father-in-law all the way. And come to find out, he was one, he chose to pass away so he can on a soul level help our family get to where we're at right now and be happier, because he could help us more in the afterlife than he could here on earth. So he is a past loved one that took on the role as one of my spirit guides, and that has been a relationship that I've had my whole entire awakening. And then you can have ascended masters. So these are guides that are just really like Buddha or something, that will come down and teach you something, or Jesus, or Mother Mary, things like that. They will come down and they will teach you certain things, and then they leave. In the beginning stages of my awakening, I was seeing them in my dreams a lot instead of in meditation. Then they started appearing in meditation, and I was like, there's no way that Jesus is coming to talk to me. And I was like, I'm just little old Josh over here trying to meditate, and Jesus is coming down and talking to me. But then I realized just how infinite Jesus or any of those energies are, and they can come to us very, very easily. So anyway, we have that kind of guide. We have guides that are just they never incarnated on Earth, and their main role is just being a spirit guide to humanity. So many people might have the same exact spirit guide that they use or that they have helping them. And either way, any spirit guide that comes down to you has the ability to see from a higher perspective, see further out into the future than you ever can, and they help us tremendously. And we can go into archangels and all that stuff and angels as well, but that's not what we're going to be doing. I think we're actually going into that next week as well with the intuition, or next month, sorry. So anyway, when we have our guides, so when we're born, we have a one spirit guide that stays with us for our whole life. So you can call it your guardian angel, you can say whatever you want. But that one spirit guide sticks with us for our whole entire life. And then we have all these other spirit guides that come in. Now, with these spirit guides, they are standing by your side and they are guiding you in many different ways. So if we don't give our spirit guides permission to heavily guide us, they're going to guide us still. They're going to make sure we're staying away from danger and things are going good. But they're not going to fully step in and start like throwing these crazy signs at you in this huge communication until you say, "Spirit guides, I ask you to help guide me." And it also helps if you say, "Help guide me in this situation." So if it could be career, relationship, or your spiritual path or whatever. If you ask your spirit guides to help you, they will start to help you heavily, more so than they are now. But what I was trying to get at is that they will stand by you with unconditional love. So even the people that are doing wrong in the world, the people that are going out hurting people, robbing people, their guides are standing by their sides, not agreeing with what they're doing, but they're still there with unconditional love and trying to help guide that person to a better life. So they're standing by them and saying, "I see this terribly hurt person that is hurting other people, and we really are just wanting to help guide you to a better place." So any chance that they get, they will try to guide that person to a better spot, a better place. And we have free will, and that's the issue down here, is we all do have free will and we can do whatever we want with it. And if we choose to go in the opposite direction, then unfortunately we end up suffering karmic debts and just tons of repercussions from that. I know in my life, I've always been able to feel when I'm not going down the right path. So if I'm like, I'm going to do this, or as soon as I choose to do something, I'm like, I get this voice or this feeling that I shouldn't do it, and I'm like, but it might be cool to do, it might work out, and then I keep doing it, and then eventually it's like it doesn't work out, or they put a big stop to it, or there's something bad that happens or something along those lines. But your guides are always there with unconditional love, waiting to guide you and help you in any way, and they do not judge us in any way. They support us, and they understand that you are a spirit down here in this body doing the best that you can, and you are heavily influenced by negative energies that are out there. You're heavily influenced by the conditioning here on Earth and by the patterns that are here, the cycles that are here. They understand all of that, and all they want is for you to try to get in tune and raise your vibration so you can raise. And honestly, right now on Earth is just a really crazy time for everybody, because we are raising the vibration of Earth, we're raising the vibration of ourselves, and there's this huge overtaking, that spiritual overtaking that's happening right now on Earth, that is happening very, very fast. So kind of a little bit different than in the past, but we are, I forget where I was going with that, but we're heavily guided, and guided with unconditional love. All right, so I did already touch on the interchangeable guides, so just to go a teeny bit further with that, you can ask your guides their name, so you can talk with them, ask their name. You can ask them to give you a cue for when they're here. So if my spirit guides come down to me and they are wanting to get my attention, they will tap the top of my head. So I'm also very tied to the Palladian star system and all that stuff. And if they want to get my attention, I start seeing little purple dots, or I'll see a purple dot appear somewhere and then it goes away. And that's how they get my attention. But your guides can get your attention in many different ways. And it takes a lot of practice, or not even, I guess it can be considered practice, but just sitting and allowing that relationship to develop. Now, when we are wanting to connect with our guides, the biggest thing that you can do is to sit quietly, go into just a meditative state or just a quiet space or a quiet state, and ask for your spirit guides to come down to you. And then when you're sitting there and you're quiet, see if you feel anything, any energy shift in the room. See if you feel any warmth, any cold, anything. And once you do that for so long, you will have a spirit guide. You will figure out how you connect with your spirit guides. But there are many other ways to connect with your guides, and you do have to utilize your psychic abilities, your intuitive abilities. But one of the ways that I teach my students or anybody to connect with their guides, it's the very first method that I try, and it is where you create a sacred space in your mind, in your imagination. So you literally make up this sacred space, and when you make it up, so for example, mine, I'm sitting next to a little creek, and there's trees around. Off on the left side there's a trail, and I don't really know what else is over there because it doesn't really matter. And there's a bench that I sit in, and there's a bench across from me, and that is where my spirit guide will come in and sit. And you can create this space. The only mandatory, it's not even mandatory, but the only thing I would advise is to make a space for you to sit or stand, and make a space for your guide to sit or stand as well. And when you create that space, you then, and I want to also say, you're not just pulling that space out of your butt. There's a reason that space comes to your mind. So whatever the space ends up looking like, that's exactly what it's supposed to look like. Because we think, well, I just imagined that and it just came out of my imagination. But that imagination thought came from somewhere, and it's meant to be whatever it is. So allow yourself to go there, and then once you are at that space, you can then ask for your spirit guide to come down to you. And in that space, you can close your eyes, and then you can open them and ask for your spirit guide to be sitting in front of you when you open your eyes. Another thing that I do, if that doesn't work, is I will open up this doorway that's to my left side. It's just a doorway, and it's filled with bright white light. And I ask for my spirit guide to come through that doorway. Now, if you're someone that has trouble making out the whole spirit guide or the whole person there, once you try it, once you see someone come out of that doorway, just allow yourself to see this figure that's filled with light come out of the doorway, and then sit down on the bench, and then start at their feet and just make out what their feet look like, and slowly make your way up, not even looking at their head or anything, and slowly make your way up and seeing what this energy looks like. Almost immediately when that energy comes out of the doorway, you're going to feel if it's a male or a female energy, so masculine or feminine energy, and you're going to feel a presence of what this spirit guide kind of represents. And it takes time to get used to all that and to really be able to identify it, but that is another way that you can build your relationship with your spirit guides. And if you're not someone that can go in, and anyone can go into meditation, but you just have to practice a little bit and allow your mind to just filter those thoughts and understand that it is okay to think while you're meditating, and it is okay to see things. But you can also give your guides permission to guide you, and then you start to see synchronicities all around you. So you start to see numbers, you start to hear songs. I'll tell a quick story. So my friend, I'm going to take a drink real quick. So I had a friend that I hadn't talked to in quite a long time, and one day I got an urge to reach out to him, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm playing this game on Xbox. If you want to join a party with me, we can play or whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, we can do it." So it was a weekend, and he was off work and all that. So we got on, and we got on probably at like 10 o'clock, and then around probably 11 o'clock, I mentioned something about spirituality or something, and he was like, "Well, it's kind of weird that you say that." And I was like, "Okay," so because I knew there was a reason why I needed to connect with him. And I was like, all right, so this is why. So he starts going into how he's been having these weird experiences and how he's just in a really bad place and stuff like that in life. So long story short, I had it was like a 4-hour conversation with him. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning by the time I realized it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, all right, we got to go. So, but I just basically told him, give your guides permission to guide you and allow them to show you that they're real. And he was like, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm going to give them full permission, blah, blah, blah. So he ended up messaging me. I think it was actually like I don't know. That day the next day I had a class that I had to do, and I did my class, and on my way home, he messaged me, and I can just feel his energy in the text, and he was like, "You are not going to believe my day." And I was like, well, I want to hear it. And so he ended up telling me that he had to take his dog to the vet and he had to get an oil change. So when he got into his car, and there was this old song playing on the radio that never plays on the radio. And it was something along the lines of like, "We're here and we're going to help you," kind of thing. It was like perfect for guides saying, "We're here and we're going to help you." So that was that. So then he dropped his dog off at the vet, and then he drove over to the oil change place. And when he went inside, when he got to the vet, I think it was, inside the vet, the song was playing on their radio. And he was like, "No way, this is insane." And then he took his car, dropped it off at the oil change place, and then his mom picked him up. And he got into his mom's van, and she was listening to that song as well. And he was like, "Are you playing this on like your phone or whatever?" And she was like, I forget the answer to that one, but anyway, it was playing in that car, and he was like, "I cannot believe this." And from that day forward, his life changed, and he ended up telling me, like, he was like, "Man, I was like on the verge of suicide when we talked, and now my life is just completely different." And all of that changed for him just by asking for his guides to help guide him. He doesn't see him, he doesn't hear him, he doesn't anything, but they give him synchronicities and they give him urges. And that's the other big thing to listen to, are your urges. And one of his was so he was asking what he can do to further open up and all that stuff. And I just told him, find what you love to do as a child and stuff like that and do it. So he felt into that, and he ended up getting a bike because he used to love riding bikes. So we got a bike, and then that took him on this journey with all that. So anyway, just by asking for his spirit guides to talk or to communicate with him, he ended up having this life-changing experience, and now he's connected with his guides. And everyone is going to fall off at some point. Like, we're going to be all in, and my guides are here, everything's great, spirituality. And then you're gonna fall off, and you're like, you know what? I don't know. I don't even know if it's all real. I'm just, I'm over here. I have life. Everything's getting hard. It's getting difficult. And those are the times when you need to put the most trust into your spirit guides, because they are going to help you through it. And when we start to hit a rough patch, that's how we know that we're getting ready to have a transformation of some sort. So you need to bear through it and understand that there is inner work that needs to happen as well for you to progress in life, and that's a whole other class, but your spirit guides are going to be there to help you. Alright, so our spirit guides do connect with synchronicities, all that kind of stuff. So the main ways that our spirit guides will communicate, you can hear a ring in your ear, you can hear a deafening in your ear. If you hear a deafening in your ear, it's like a whoop, and then it's like when you can't really hear out of that ear for a second. That usually is your spirit guide saying, stop. This is a warning. You shouldn't do what you're doing or what you're thinking, or stop and assess your situation. And that can mean your situation in life, where you're at, or what you're doing at this time. I was leaving a party one time when I first opened up to all this, and I walked past this dog that was viciously barking at us. and I didn't pay any attention to it. And then all of a sudden, my ear was like, "Whoop," and then I was like, "Oh man, that's a sign." And I looked around. I was like, "Well, but what?" And then I realized this dog was up on like a second-story balcony kind of thing or deck, and it was on a leash, a short leash, and the opening was like this big. It was one of those that had like a wooden railing in the middle and a wooden railing on top. Dog could have easily have fallen, and I got the feeling that that dog is going to end up falling and it's going to end up getting hurt or killed by its leash and whatever. So I went back in, I told the owner, and I was like, your dog is like slipping and sliding up there, and it could very easily fall and hurt itself. From there, I don't know what happened. I left, but just things like that. You need to listen to your guides, or you need to listen to those signs. They will send you those ringing of the ears. They will send you thoughts. Sometimes those thoughts feel like your own thought. So if I ever am doing something and I get the thought of I should do this, well, as soon as I get that thought of I should do this, I know that I just received a message and I translated that message on some level, and I'm now telling myself that I should do this. So, excuse me. You have to listen to what's going on within your thoughts, because within our head we have our ego that talks to us, we have our inner voice that talks to us, and then we have our spirit guides that pop in and talk to us as well. And if you're someone that's very open to spirits, you can have spirits that are talking to you, and you have to be aware of that as well. So that's one way that they can, or another way that they can talk with you. And then lastly, the last thing I want to touch on with that topic is the urges. Really pay attention to your feelings of what you are feeling. So I had a session, and we were talking about, I found some things within the body, within the field, and this was just earlier today, and she was just saying that, so I told her all the stuff I was finding, and she was like, it's just so weird, because like the other day I was doing this, and I just felt like I should do this, but I didn't, and now you're in here telling me that I should, and then this morning I was doing this, and I just felt like I should do this, but I didn't, and now you're telling me I should. So there's I just feel like I should. We should get in the habit of just doing what we feel like we should do. And unless it's something really extreme, then we might need to weigh those options there. But it's you want to roll with it. And when you do, life you fall into your flow state, and you fall into this amazing flow of things, and your guides see that you're opening up to that communication, you're opening up to that guidance, and then they will go full on, and before you know it, you're I don't know where I'm at right now doing all this, because this all happened so darn fast. It's like, what even happened? So you end up just falling into wherever you need to fall into in life, basically. All right, so just to touch on what they look like, and I've already touched on this, so I'm not going to go too far into it. They can look like a pillar of light. They can be a color. Some people see their spirit guides as just a color purple, and that means that's Anawaka that's coming down and talking to them, and that's their guidance guide or whatever. So it can be like that. Your guide, it can be a fairy, it can be an elemental kind of spirit. You can talk to a tree. It can be a Jesus kind of thing. It can be a being of light. There's aliens like the Greys that can come down and be your guide. There's just so many different types of guides, and we have to be open to all of it. And we have to understand that while there are bad things out there, bad entities, spirits, they're not everything you see is bad. So like a lot of people will see an alien or something, and they'll automatically think it's bad, like a gray alien. And they'll think that it's automatically just bad, it's not good. For example, the nun that I seen, I thought it was bad. I was like, there's no way this is good. It's creepy. It's not good. And I sent it away, and I saw it disappear. And then the next day I asked for my spirit guides to come down, and she was not there. And then all of a sudden, whoop, she appeared, and I was like, no. I said, oh. And then I realized that I needed to work with her or whatever. So just understand not everything's bad. Honestly, usually not a lot of anything is bad. If you're doing like protection, you're in a higher frequency, and you're trying to work on your life and just better yourself. Negative entities or energies don't want anything to do with that. Typically, they want someone that's just really down on their luck, and they want to draw from that energy. So, all right. Yeah, and I just want to add to that. In my journey, I was talking with all these spirit guides. Everything was great until my teacher told me that there are bad spirits and stuff out there that can act as a good spirit. Then from that moment forward, everything to me was bad, and I was afraid of everything. And I wish she never would have said that, but she had to. But it took me literally like a year before I understood that not everything is bad, and not everything is a chameleon trying to act good to get to me. Spirits are like humans. When you see them, usually you can tell if they're good or bad, and by their attitude and by how they talk to you or how they communicate, you can tell if it's good or bad. So just allow yourself to go at it as if you just met someone at a job or something, and you're just feeling them out pretty much. All right. So another thing that our spirit guides can do that happens a lot with us, with everyone, is they will give us the will to do something, but they can only do that for so long. For example, dieting. This is a big thing for me. They will give you, if you say, you know what, I think I'm going to diet, and then you all of a sudden feel that like rush, and you're like, I can do this. I know I can do this. And it's like no big deal. So you start doing it, and then like a week later, you're like, yeah, maybe I'm not really feeling it. I'm kind of tired of making my meals or this or that. And what ends up happening is your guides give you that push. They give you that that will to do what you're wanting to do. And then they sit there, they ride it out for a little while, but that it's almost like they put this big ball of energy around you that says, I'm going to diet, and you're 100% able to do it. And as you go forward, that bubble deteriorates a little bit. And then eventually it's your own energy, and it's not your spirit guides that are giving you that energy to do it, because they can only infringe on your free will so much. And then you have the decision to do it. It's like a jump start for you, and then it's up to you if you want to continue to do it or not. And don't ever have any judgment on yourself if you're not able to keep up with it, because it is extremely hard, especially living in the day and age that we live in now. It is really hard to stick to anything, especially with the conditioning. And if we want to look at diets with the fast food that's around, or the easy meals, or just all of that stuff, and we're all meant to be, or we're all not meant, we're all conditioned to be so busy all the time that we can't find a half an hour to meal prep or anything. It's just crazy. But anyway, that's how that kind of works. And that also works with ideas and business ideas, or the idea to write a book, and then you get on it for a week, and then you're like, I'm kind of tired of it. And it's just a lot of different things like that. All right, so hopping into the synchronicities of spirit guides, they can communicate through numbers. So if you're seeing, like, if you wake up and you see that it's 11:22, and then later on you haven't looked at the clock all day and you look at it and it's 1:44, and then a little bit later on you look and it's 8:55, and it's just going like that. That is the universe's way, typically, because everyone's different, but that is the universe's way, of saying you are on the right track. What you are doing right now in life, that decision that you just made, or that direction that you're going in, this is exactly what we want you to do, and you're in the right state right now. And whatever is happening right now, it is meant to happen. And then you go to where you only see the number 33 all the time. So you look at the clock and it's 4:33, and then you're driving to work and the license plate says awesome guy 33, and then you get into work and you clock in and it's 4:33 or whatever, and you see the same number, then that's like an angel number. So then that's where you would look up, and honestly there's books that decode the numbers, but I go to Google and I read through the different articles until I find one that vibes with me and feels like it is the message that I'm getting. It's almost as if it highlights itself. So use your intuition with that. Just allow yourself to Google what's the spiritual meaning of the number 33, and then you just go through and whatever article you decide to click on it, and where if it feels right, it feels right. If it doesn't, go look at the next one. And it doesn't always have to be 33. It can be 55. It can be 123. It can be. I have a client that for the longest time she has I forget the number, but it's like 247 or 347 or something, and she'll send me pictures, and it's just so weird how it comes across to her. Like it'll come across on a license plate, and then she got this desk in, or a couch or something, or a table, and there was a little tag on it, a sticker tag for no reason, like it was just on it, and it was like 347. It's just all these weird things come to her, and it's 347, and that's her guides communicating with her for different reasons. But anyway, many different numbers, many different things. It also synchronicities come across as like seeing a certain thing. So if you get the idea of I should become a nurse, let's just say, and then you're driving to your job that day and you see a big billboard that says looking to become a nurse, and then you get into work and someone there is like, oh my gosh, you should hear about my sister, she's in nursing school right now, and you just start to hear those things. That is the universe saying, hey, maybe you should put some weight into this. Now I know the nursing field is probably not the best example to give right now, because a lot of nurses are not happy with where they're at, but it's and a lot of them are, but that's just an example of hearing that same thing over and over and over. And it can be something even more trivial, like I need to go to the library, and then you start seeing things about libraries, and then you go in and you find a spiritual book that helps you, or a book that helps you, and you I don't know, it just changes your life. Another one is songs. I gave you an example earlier. The thing you need to look at, if you hear the same song over and over, or, well, we'll go with that one first. So if you're hearing the same song externally, like on a radio, over and over, take note of what that song's about. Take note of what that song's saying, what the chorus is saying, because usually there's something in there that is a message. So if you're really dwelling on your relationship and you keep hearing this song about a lover that's cheating and you need to let him go, well, that's probably the universe saying that your lover's cheating and you need to let him go, or whatever. And then there's the other part of where a song gets stuck in your head. So the song isn't necessarily getting stuck in your head it's not getting stuck in your head for no reason. There's a reason that the song is stuck in your head. So paying attention to that is good as well. And then when you wake up in the morning, like I will wake up with the most random songs sometimes, from because I don't listen to people like Katy Perry or things like that, but I'll wake up to a song from like Kelly Clarkson or something, and I'm just like, why is this song in my head? And then I just review what the song's about, and then as soon as you acknowledge the message there, that song is gone. It's no longer there. So it's just acknowledging that, because your guides, the universe, is trying to give you a sign of some sort. Alright, so I've kind of touched on the rest of what I have here, so I'm not going to continue to drive that in. A couple more things about our spirit guides is that they give us divine protection. So I don't know if any of you have had these kind of experiences. I know I have, and I'm going to give one example of it. But they are here to protect you. If it's not your time, they're going to make sure you don't die, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. If you're not meant to get hurt right then and there, they're going to make sure that you don't get hurt. And it's hard for us humans to understand that we may get hurt for a reason. So, like, I break my leg in half. Well, there's a reason for that. And we're like, well, but why? That is so much pain, agony, missing out on being able to work, do that. But, like, there's a reason. And we have to just trust that. And that takes a lot of strength and a lot of faith to do. But our guides will stop us from being hurt, and they will protect us. So I used to deliver newspapers at night, and this is a long, long time ago, before I was even open to my spiritual stuff. And And so my sister was in the hospital. I was using my mom's van, so I had to go. It was the Mercy West over there, if anybody's familiar with it, on Queen City and Bootno. So I was driving over there to get my mom's van because I needed it for all the papers that I was going to be delivering. And I was on Bootno going across Queen City. So these are 35-mile-an-hour zones. It was late at night, like 2 in the morning at night, and the lights weren't blinking like they do sometimes. They were like on, and I had a green light, and I was going, and I was like, man, I should stop. And I was like, no, I'm not stopping. I'm late. I have to get there. And I got up to the light, and like automatically my foot just came off the gas, and I hit the brake, and I just slowed down, and I came to a stop. And as I was slowing down, this car came flying. I mean, they were going probably like 50 to 70 mile an hour, just incredibly way too fast. And if I would have kept going, I 100% would have been hit by that car. It would have been on the passenger side, but I would have been hit by that car, and who knows what could have happened. I could have been hurt, could have been killed, could have been nothing, who knows. But they stopped that from happening, and I was very, very grateful for that. And from this day forward, from that day forward, I slow down, and I look both ways even when it's a green light. I mean, I'm not like annoyingly slowing down, but if I'm going through the green light, I'm looking both ways to make sure all sets of traffic is stopped. If it's a 2-lane road, I'm making sure both cars in the front are stopped, or else I'm just creeping a little bit and looking. So anyway, they will protect you, and they've protected me from many, many other things in my life, and I just know that if something happens, it's meant to happen, because my guides will stop it from happening. Okay, so just to sum everything up there, when it comes to our spirit guides, the biggest way to communicate with them is to ask them to communicate with you and give them permission to intervene in life. Sit down, meditate, quiet your mind, ask them to come down to you and show themselves to you. It took me like 3 months, no, like 2 months, maybe a month to 3 months, somewhere along those lines, before my spirit guide came down to me. And I would sit down, I would go quiet, and I was seeing visions. I was seeing visions of things, of messages and stuff, but I could not see a spirit guide. And I would ask for them to come down, and they would never come down. And then one night I was sitting there, and I asked for my spirit guide to come down, and I just relaxed. And then all of a sudden this Egyptian lady popped in my mind. I was like, oh my God, my spirit guide. And then she went away because I got too excited. And I was like, no, come back. And I was too excited, too worked up, and she didn't come back, so I missed out on that opportunity. So then a couple days later, she popped back in. I was like, so I stayed calm, and I started talking with her, and she started talking with me, and it was like having a two-way conversation. And that was the only conversation that I ever had with that spirit guide until last night, weirdly enough. So I'll just tell the story really quick. So I was looking at my basement camera at something. Honestly, my wife was like, I feel like this slide was sitting the other way. And I was like, she was like even earlier today. And I was like, I don't know, I didn't pay any attention. I was like, well, we do have our camera. We can just look at the cameras. So I started looking at it, and then I seen movement at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, well, why is there movement at 4 o'clock in the morning? So it was like broken up. And then there were these white orbs that were just like crazy going into this camera. And I was like, maybe it's a spider. So I went down, looked, there's no spider webs, there's no spiders or anything like that. And then like an orb was coming down, then it split into two, and like it was just like undeniably an orb. And so I went into meditation last night, and I was like, who or what are these orbs? And then this spirit guide, this lady that I kind of seen in my peripheral at times, but I just told her to leave because I didn't have time for it, basically. And I wasn't mean like that, but I was basically like, I was like, I just don't have the time right now. We'll touch on it another time. And so she came up. She was like, "Hi, I've been trying to get your attention for a while now, and I was like, well, why are you doing the orb?" She said, "I strictly did that to get your attention because I knew you would eventually look at the cameras and blah blah blah." So I started talking to her, and she took me into some past life stuff that I needed to work on, basically. But that's for another time. But that spirit guide was the very first spirit guide that I ever seen. And I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. I never thought I would see you again. It's cool that you're here and I'm able to communicate with you again. So, just allow yourself to relax and ask for spirit guides communication. Lastly, create a sacred space for your spirit guides within your mind, and they will be able to come. You're going to feel like you're making it up sometimes. You're going to feel like you're going to feel like you're making up the communication that you're getting. You're going to feel like you're making up the spirit guide that's there, and that's okay. Make it up like crazy, because what's going to happen is you're going to realize you're going to get a ton of validation, and you're going to get a ton of communication that actually makes sense and is out there, or that shows up out there in your actual world. So, and if you have any questions about that ever, just reach out to me and I can kind of shoot you a text of like how to move into that space and just kind of walk you through that as well. So I'm always here to help with that. All right, so now we're going to move into our inner child. And the inner child is it's a hard one sometimes, because we go through a lot in our childhood and we have a lot that's being held in there. So let me take a drink and then I'll dive into that. All right. So when it comes to the inner child, it is a aspect of ourselves that comes from our childhood. Basically, it's everything that happened in childhood that is being held inside of our sacral chakra and within our energy. It is being held there, and it has a ton to do with where we're, man, that was a big stutter there, where we're at in life and what we're doing in life, like our cycles, our limited beliefs, our traumas that are blocking our energy, and just a ton of different things. So it is a aspect of ourselves that's held within our sacral chakra. So when it comes to our inner child, in our adult life, when we decide that we want to work on the inner child, what we're doing there is we are going back in our past and we are helping heal that inner child. And by healing that inner child, it heals us in our lives now. And I'm going to give an example, and many people that have been here a lot have heard this. So anybody on the live, I know there's a lot of you that have seen it or heard this, so I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat it, but it's a good story. So I always had issues with money, not ever having enough money. That was my issue. No matter how much money I had, it was gone, and I just never had enough. So I was talking to someone today about how important YouTube is in your journey, honestly. YouTube can guide you to some amazing teachers and teachings and where you need to go. So I was led to past life stuff, and I went into past life to help with my money problems. And I went to this space and I saw this scene and sent some healing, all that stuff. And then I thought I was good. I thought I was done. Money problems were going to be solved and everything was good. So it wasn't, and it was a little better, but nothing crazy. And I was like, well, what the heck? I did my past life work. Everything's supposed to be perfect now. And then that night I was led to inner child stuff on YouTube. And I was like, well, I'm going to go talk with my inner child. And I didn't even put two and two together that it had to do with money problems at this point. I just thought that I was meant to just heal some stuff in the inner child for whatever reason in my spiritual journey. So I went into my inner child, or I went into meditation and I asked to see my inner child. And this is one of the ways that you can communicate with your inner child. And I'm going to break this down a little bit more here in just a second, like how you can actually do it instead of my story. But I went into this space and my inner child was there. I went to a park that I played at when I was a kid. Inner child was there. It was black and white. Inner child was sad, sitting on a swing by himself. And it was just me as a child. And I was like, oh, buddy, what's up, man? I'm here now. I'm wanting to help you and, all this stuff and wanting to establish a relationship. And he was just kind of like, I'm just lonely and I'm sad and blah, 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 like that kind of stuff. So over a week or two period, I went there every single night and I spent time with my inner child. Each night I went back, color started to come to the picture and to the area. he got happier and all that stuff. So eventually I got, over like a week or two period, I got to where it was very vibrant and it was very colorful. He was happy. We were running around. We were playing. It was beautiful out, blue skies. And then he came up to me and he was like, so, like, I went in there and he was like, so today, instead of playing, I want to show you something. And I was like, oh, okay. And he sat me down and he was like, we're going to fix your money problems. And I was like, what? I didn't even think about that. And he was basically like, yeah, so I want you to see what I have to show you, basically. And he was like, so this is why you have your money problems. And took me to a scene of me in a grocery cart with my mom, and we were at Kroger. And I was like, Mom, can I get this candy bar? And she was like, no, Josh, we don't have enough money. And I was like, all right. And then another scene came where I asked her to get something. She was like, no, we don't have enough money. And then I came back to my inner child, and he was like, there you go. And I was like, so I have all these problems because of those two incidents that happened with my mom. He was like, oh, no. And he put up this like projector screen, and it was a square or a rectangle, and it had thousands of little scenes when my mom told me we didn't have enough money. So not my mom's fault. My mom was just doing her best, and we really didn't have enough money at that time. Maybe her parents had that limited belief and passed it on to her, and so on. So I don't blame her at all for it. She was just doing her best. But her telling me I didn't have enough money my whole life was ingrained into my energy, into my inner child, and therefore I didn't have enough money. So then what I said, so do I have to go into every one of these and heal it? And he was like, no. He said, you can send healing right now to all of them, acknowledge it, and let it go. And I was like, it's just that easy. He said, yes, it's that easy. So I sent this, I just filled it up with bright white light. And at that time, the way that I was healing things is I literally looked at it like a desktop screen, and I sent it over into my healing folder. And like I clicked and drug it over, and I sent it to be healed with love and light. And after that, very shortly after that, I started getting more into my real estate. I've been a real estate agent for like 12 years or so, and I started getting more into my real estate. Actually, it's been like 17 years. It's not 12. And I started getting more into real estate, and then my wife came to me and was like, I'm thinking about getting my real estate license. She got a real estate license, and then everything's just been abundant since then, and I no longer have money problems, and everything's just amazing. And all because I went into my inner child and I worked on that stuff. Now, it's not always about money problems. It can also be about beliefs of I'm not good enough, or no man should be in my life for longer than a few months before I drive him away, or just like all kinds of things like that. If we're a child and we see our mother or our father cycling through men or women all through our lives, that is ingrained in our inner child. So at some, most likely, not always, but most likely, so at some level, we have that belief that that is what we should have, and we end up following that same pattern, or we can choose to not go down that same pattern. And right now in life, on Earth, everyone is here to break these patterns that have been passed down for many different ancestral lines. So anybody that's alive, even if you're 80 years old, you're now able to break these cycles. But usually the 80-year-olds are very set in their ways, and they are there, but there are also many that aren't. But a lot of people below that age are really starting to break cycles. So the inner child, you can communicate with them in a few different ways. And let me make sure this is where I want to go with this. All right, so yes, so the ways that we can communicate with our inner child are we can take ourselves back to a time or to a place that we used to play as a child. So the park situation. I did not intentfully put myself at that park. That's just where I went to. But you can say, this is the park that I played at, and I asked for my inner child to meet me there. Or if it's an old household that you used to live in, anything along those lines, you can ask for your inner child to meet you there. And then you just imagine or you visualize you as a child, and then you just talk and you do your thing, and they will take you through a lot of different things. Questions that you can ask them when you get there is, what am I carrying into my adult life from childhood that I can work on? And they will most certainly take you into that area of things and show you what you need to work on. You can ask them, what can I do to help support you, the child? What can I help do to support you? And oftentimes what happens is your inner child ends up telling you different ways of how you were feeling when you were a child. So different ways that you were making yourself feel, different ways that your parents were making you feel, or your friends, or things like that. Sometimes our inner child can be mad at us for not doing something that we should have done, or things like that. And it takes time to work and talk with your inner child. But just understand, you need to always come with a way of unconditional love with your inner child. But that's one way that you can do that. And you can experiment with your inner child, do whatever you feel like you need to do, and whatever you feel like you need to be led to do, and you will find so much help with that. Because when you heal that one little thing, well, it's not little, but that one thing, it feels little when you're in that meditation, you're just healing it most of the time. That changes your life so much. It changes your past, your present, and your future. And it is just amazing what working on your inner child can do. So, another way that you can work on your inner child. I had a student of mine a long time ago, well, a couple years ago, and he was telling me that he was on a retreat, and they did an exercise where he stood up and he looked down, and he visualized him as a child there, and he closed his eyes and was just looking down, and he was talking to his inner child. And then after they talked and he let out whatever he needed to let out, he then got on his knees and then looked up as if he was his inner child talking to himself now. And he was saying that was a super powerful exercise for him. I have never done that myself, but I share it because I think it might be worth it for anybody to try. But he said he ended up arguing with himself. He's on his knees yelling at himself now, and ended up really working some things out, though. And then one of the best ways, if you're not a very visual person, is to write a letter from your inner child. And I've done this in many different classes. I've done this many different times. And you do this by, at the top of the letter, or the paper, you write down, "Letter from my inner child." And then, and then underneath that, you start by saying, "My inner child wants me to know." And you just go, and you write, and you continue to write. And at the beginning, you're going to feel like it's you making it up, and it very well could be. But eventually, you get out of your own way, and you start writing this letter from your inner child. And the things that come out in that session can be life-changing. It can be very hurtful. It can be very sad. It can make you very angry. It can do a whole bunch of things. But it's very important because you need to communicate with your inner child. And then other things that you can ask are the things that I was talking about earlier when you're in meditation with them, is what am I carrying on from my childhood into my adult life? Like, what's affecting me now? You can start with that and start writing that. You can write that question down and then just start writing and writing and writing. And once you do that, you will get a ton of information, and you can communicate with your inner child in any way. You can ask them, what can you do to help support them, and start writing things down. And you will find a lot of information coming through that way. And then once you do find these things or this stuff, so you want to allow yourself, let's say a trauma comes up from when you were a child, something that happened that really made you sad or really made you hurt or mad or something along those lines. One important thing is to allow yourself to feel those emotions and breathe through those emotions, because when we're looking into emotion that's being held in the body, it's it's only held there because it needs to be healed. It needs to be felt. Healed and felt, same kind of thing. But it needs to be felt. For example, if I say something funny, you're going to laugh most of the time. If I say something that makes you mad, you're going to hold it in and say, it's not the place for that, and, whatever. And that's going to stick with you. So you can think back. I just did an exercise in Monday meditation where I was like, think back on making breakfast. So basically we went into meditation and I said, go back to when you were eating breakfast this morning, and just note or take yourself through that as if you're there and you're looking at it, either from a third person perspective or from your perspective. And then I said, take yourself to going to bed the night before, and basically just all the present things, taking yourself through those moments. And then I said, take yourself back to the last time that you were mad or upset. So when you're looking back at breakfast, you're looking back at bedtime, you're looking back at something else, I forget what it was, but you're looking back at those times and you feel nothing usually. You're not feeling anything. You're just there and you're seeing it. But then when you go back to a time that made you feel, or the last time that you were upset, or the last time you were mad, we'll just say, and you then see that scenario and you feel it somewhere in your body. You feel that emotion come up. So it's very important to understand that that emotion is just trapped in the body and it needs to be let go. And then when you think back on that situation, you're most likely not going to feel that emotion anymore. And you can do that as many times as you need to let that emotion go. But what happens is that anger is accumulating in the body. So you got angry at someone, you didn't say anything, and you just held that anger in. So then you end up with that little bit of anger from that situation. Then the next thing happens and you hold more anger in and you don't say anything, and then that's held in there. And then before we know it, we're just an angry person because we have so much anger trapped inside, and we don't know why we're always angry, or we don't know why it only takes 2 seconds for someone to make us really, really mad, or someone to say the wrong thing, and then all of a sudden I'm just blowing up. And that is, you can look at it as your cup is, like the top is here and your energy is always right there when it comes to anger. And as soon as someone does something, that spills over. But if you went into that scenario of let's just say the last time that you were mad, and you see that, you feel that, and then you just allow yourself to feel mad and be mad, and you breathe through that until that anger is kind of subsided a little bit, your energy goes down a little bit. So instead of being here and the cup top is here, your energy goes down a little bit, and then you work on the next thing, and before you know it, you're able to have your energy at a level of that's sustainable, that people can do things and it doesn't throw you over the top and you aren't as mad. And the same goes with sadness, depression, just all that kind of stuff. It all works the same kind of way-ish. So allowing yourself to feel those emotions and breathe through them to allow them to pass through. I used to have real bad anxiety where it showed up where I would feel really dizzy, off balance, I would feel like I can't breathe, but on the outside I'm calm and I look like I'm just fine, but inside I was just dying, and I knew I was going to die by the way I felt, and I'm either going to have a heart attack or I'm going to pass out any second now. And I realized that in those moments, if I just said, you know what, I'm just going to pass out, or I'm just going to have a heart attack or whatever, it would all go away. And then it would come back shortly after. But I realized that if I surrender to that anxiety, then I don't feel it anymore. So by surrendering, I was allowing myself to feel it, and I was allowing myself to just feel it and bring it on. But what happens with anxiety, and this isn't an anxiety class, but I'm going to just touch on it a little bit, is it builds. So you might have a little bit of shift in your balance or something, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, am I about to pass out? And then then your anxiety kicks in, and then you start having shortness of breath, and you're like, whoa, I'm having shortness of breath. Is that because I'm having an asthma attack, or do I have asthma, or is it a heart attack, or is it this? And then you just start snowballing with that. And that's how anxiety can work sometimes in the body. But if we feel it in the beginning and we say, all right, I feel it, and I'm letting it go, it doesn't get past the point of that. So just understand that. And then also there's tons of other different types of anxiety, such as like just feeling stress in the head and just feeling a whole bunch of thoughts and things like that. And all of that just needs to be felt and released. All right, so I need to figure out where the heck I'm at with this. So, all right. Basically, just allow yourself to move on, heal all that, and you will have a much better life. Go at it with a sense of unconditional love and allow yourself to truly be understanding towards yourself when you look at your inner child stuff, because you need to understand that you were doing the best that you could at that time, and there should be no judgment on you and ultimately anyone else associated with that situation. There should be no judgment because they were just doing what they were conditioned or thought was best, or whatever gave them a thrill, or whatever it may be. But that's for a whole other. I have that class coming up in week 6 for healing, how to manifest, heal traumas within ourselves, and initiate inner healing. But yes, so with the inner child, the last thing I'm going to say about it is important to have that relationship as an adult, because you're much more wiser, you're much more understanding, and you're much more mature at this point to be able to look back on those situations and see, such as kids bullying you or something. If you were ever bullied, you can look back now and understand that those kids were just doing what they felt they needed to do to stay relevant, or to stay cool, or to make themselves feel better about themselves. And they really are the ones now that are in a really bad place, usually because they didn't deal with those demons that were inside of them at a young age, or they did and they're perfectly fine. But we just have to understand that they were just trying their best, or they were doing their best, and that's just unfortunately where they felt like they needed to be to bring peace to themselves. Okay, so now, and I do have an exercise to do with this, but I'm going to save that until the end if we have time. Now we're going to move into talking about our higher self. And the reason I have spirit guide, inner child, higher self is because I think those are 3 aspects that we should connect to in order to help our lives get on track and to be able to initiate healing. So, any past life stuff that I do, any inner child work that I do, honestly, a lot of everything that I do, I ask for my higher self to come down to me. So I do bright light protection, like I mentioned earlier. So if I go to do bright light protection without my higher self, sometimes it can be hard to get the bubbles, because I do it on myself, my kids, my wife, my house, my property, and my cars, all that stuff. But sometimes it can be a little difficult visualizing it at times. But if I call down my higher self and ask him to aid me in that, it is all so vibrant and so much more bright, and just everything is so much more easier if you just call down for your higher self. You do not have to see your higher self. You don't have to sense your higher self. Your higher self can be nowhere to be found, but if you just call upon them and ask them to come down and assist you, they will. So what our higher self is it is the sum of all of our lives that we've lived. So I believe in reincarnation, and I believe that we have past lives, and in the grand scheme of things, all of those lives are happening at the same time right now, and there's no past, there's no future, but we won't get into all that. But our higher self is the sum of all of those lives, and it's very wise. It knows everything about you. It knows everything that you've ever been through in this life and every other life, and it is just incredibly wise. So, when we call upon our higher self, it knows, since all lives are happening all at once, and this life essentially has already happened, but it's still happening. We're in the past and the future and the present at the same time. Our higher self knows exactly where we're going in this life, and it knows exactly the things that are going to come up, and it knows how to guide us in the perfect direction to navigate all of that. Now, I do want to say that some of the things that we see bad on earth are things that our soul sent our spirit fragment down to experience because it needed to. So, talking to the broken leg earlier. So, if that's something that's meant to happen for some reason, your higher self is going to guide you in the most polite and awesome way ever to go break your leg, basically. But it's happening for a reason, and we have to just understand that. Now, if it's not meant to happen, your higher self knows it's going to happen. He or it or she will guide you away from that situation, so you do not have to go through that, basically. But it does know what's going to be happening in your future. In your future, knows what's happened in the past, and knows what's going on in the present, and so on. When I go back in a past life, I always have so when I am in a past life, I'm looking at the scene from a third person perspective, seeing what's going on, and my higher self's just hanging out right here with me all the time. So when I say I want to send healing, my higher self and I send healing, and he advises me on what to do from there. When I go in with my inner child, sometimes he's there. If I'm ever going back and healing any kind of situation from my inner child, he's there. So it's me, my higher self, my my child self, and anyone else involved, or if it's just me, it's just there. And we play the situation out. We allow it we allow ourselves to see what's happening there and why we have a trauma, why we're feeling a certain way, or why there's a blockage there. And then we send healing and understanding to the whole situation. If there's any forgiveness that needs to happen for ourselves, or if we need to fall into understanding why the person did something, we do that, and then we send this love and light to this situation, and we just watch it deteriorate and go off. So that does not make the situation or the thing disappear, but what it does do is it makes it to where we can go back and we can think about that situation without feeling that crippling anxiety or sadness or anger and things like that. So it's very important to be able to send that healing, and I utilize my higher self to do that. So when you're looking at guidance, there's no better guidance person than your higher self to talk to. So you can ask for your spirit guides to come down. They give great advice, and they're always going to help us as well. But your higher self has your interest at hand, and only your interest at hand, because you are your higher self, or a piece of your higher self. You can kind of look at your higher self as your soul up here, and then your soul has sent all these spirit fragments out to live in all these bodies and live in all these lifetimes to experience all these things. All right, so when it comes to our higher self, we want to utilize that wisdom in any way that we possibly can. A couple ways that you can connect with your higher self. One way that, and you can communicate with your spirit guides, inner child as well, but one exercise that I do with our higher self, which we'll probably do here in a second, is that I bring you into your imagination space, and I have you imagine a whiteboard. And you just see this whiteboard, and you see a marker there, and whatever color that marker is whatever color it is. And you ask for your higher self to come down, and you ask for them to write one word on this whiteboard. And that word is whatever word you need at this time. And they write it down, and it could be a very strong, powerful word for you, but that's one way that you can do it. You can also write a letter from your higher self. You can also write, I forgot to mention this earlier, you can also write a letter from your spirit guide. So you can utilize writing and talk with all of these. I just did a self-discovery and development workshop last month, I think it was, and it was amazing. We did so much writing, though. It was a lot of writing, but it was amazing seeing people communicate with their guides and with their higher self, inner child, with their inner self, and just all of that through writing. And people were having amazing experiences. A lot of them reached out to me afterwards and was just telling me how amazing or how much they got from being able to write down and connect with their guides. So that's another way. And you can also, in your sacred space for your spirit guides, you can ask for your higher self to come down into that space as well. So don't ever hesitate to. You can ask for anyone to come down into that space. So I did a mediumship workshop, and in that workshop, I had them create their sacred space in the beginning, and then we were bringing in these spirits into that sacred space, and a lot of people had really good experiences. There was a lot of people that got the perfect. I'm trying to think of the right word. Great validation of the spirits that they were trying to read for the person next to them and stuff like that. So, that kind of wraps up what I'm going into about the spirit guides, inner child, higher self. And I want to ask if there's any questions first. And then from there, we might do an exercise. We will do one exercise. I don't know if we'll do all of them. But does anybody have any questions about anything at this time? Anybody on the live, if you have a question, ask as well.
I had just a question.
Yeah.
So two questions. One, do you do most of your exercises with your eyes open or closed?
Closed. Like writing, obviously, I do that with my eyes open, but going in and connecting and all that, I have my eyes closed. And sitting up. Don't lay down because you'll fall asleep.
Yes. And then your conversations, are those mostly in your head, or do you actually speak out loud?
So almost all of the conversations are in my head, and that's a good point, and I'll touch on something in a second. But all of my conversations are in my head, and something to note is if your spirit guide comes down to you and you look at them and you're like, hey, how you doing? Here's a question for you, and they're just looking at you and they're not saying anything, what you want to tap into is, are they giving you any telepathic communication? So are they just giving you thoughts? Are they giving you visions? So if you're trying to have like a regular conversation with them and it's just not going anywhere, look them in their eyes and then just say, I ask you to now give me the answer to this question or whatever, and allow yourself to just go wherever you go and see whatever you see. And sometimes you'll just get a knowing. So you'll ask them a question, you'll just know the answer back. So just pay attention to that. And then one thing that I used to do when I was feeling a lack of connection from my spirit guides a long time ago when I was first developing is I would ask for my spirit guide to come down to me while I'm driving my car. And it was when I was doing my paper route. And I would ask for them to come down to me in my car and sit in the back seat. And I would just like imagine or feel like a presence was sitting in my back seat, and then I would talk out loud to that spirit guide. And I would do this in my house at times as well. I would talk out loud to my spirit guide, and I feel like it gives a more powerful communication because you're sending out vibration into the atmosphere and into their energy, and then they're able to communicate back sometimes. Another thing that I found that I was doing is I was talking with my spirit guides, and I would find myself venting, and before I know it, I'm talking for like 20 minutes. I'm like, wow, what am I even talking about at this point? But I found that I would be talking, and then I would be answering my own questions. So there was just this connection that was established that was helping me just get the answer to my own questions, basically. And it got to the point where I started to record my talking to my spirit guide. So on my phone, I have a few different recordings, but I would record and I would just start talking, and I'd be, I just don't know what I should do about this. And although, I could do this, and I feel like that. And then before I know it, I've actually answered my own question, and I know it was because of the spirit guides guidance and stuff like that. So that's kind of a long answer to your question, I guess. But yeah, talk out loud if you feel like it helps you communicate with them better. Anybody else have any questions about anything?
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you were talking about inner child and having those blocks, all of those blocks are from inner child?
So No, not necessarily. So, if we're looking at ourselves right now and we're looking at our energy, so there are many traumas that happen in our adult years as well. So, I almost can, in my opinion or my lookings, I look from like 10 years ago and down as my inner child, kind of. But that's kind of our inner child, though, is usually childhood kind of things. But there are plenty of things that happen in our adult years that we need to look back and work on as well. So we would then work with our higher self in those moments to say, all right, what is there in my past that I need to look back on, or that's serving as a blockage in my energy and so on right now. So then you might be brought back, and honestly, most of the time, even just talking about it, you're brought to like different scenarios that you already know are there, but being in a sacred space and just being able to go and do that with your higher self will help validate that and help heal it. But also, we have our past life stuff that can be held within our energy as well. I've been doing sessions on people where I'm going down their arm and there's some kind of something that's attached to a past life that's being held on their arm or in their leg or wherever, or in one of their chakras, and you release it most of the time, and then it's healed. But yes, there's tons of different things that are held within our energy, and along with like the conditioning and all that stuff, there's also things that happen that negative energy kind of attaches to our energy field as well. So where we're going back and we're looking at traumas and we're looking at blockages, there's also just dirt that can hang out in our energy. So that's why it's good for us to like go into meditation and do cleansings and stuff like that, to help with that as well. So yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions?
I know, like, I know that, like, a lot of times with, like, past or child, like, traumas, so if something happens to you as a child, you might have a defense mechanism that happened to protect you during that time, and it did a really good job of protecting you, but then it'll come out as an adult, and when you do that inner child healing, then you realize that those things that you did to protect you as a child don't work for you so much as an adult, and that's when that healing occurs.
Yes, I agree.
Because the things that happen as a child to keep you safe or to help you make it through what you've had to endure, as an adult you want to heal from that so you're not stuck in that past pattern. So when things like why does this feel similar to this or whatever, it's like the universe telling you that this is a healing that you carried with you and you need to just release it and heal from it.
Yeah, I literally, like last week I had a session that had that exact scenario where there was a ideology or there was a protection mechanism that was being held in one of their lower chakras that was needing to be released because it no longer serves them, basically. So to what you're saying, I agree 100%. We do have things that we do at a younger age to protect ourselves that we do need to release because it's no longer trying to keep us, or it's no longer serving us. And I mean, also another thing, so I was talking about dieting earlier. So oftentimes we have traumas or we have things that happen to us that make us gain weight. Like we will gain weight to make ourselves feel protected, and we can diet all we want and do all we want, but at the end of the day we're not going to be able to lose that weight because we're holding it on because it's making us feel protected. But away from that, we can find that we are always pushing people away because that's what we felt like we needed to do in our childhood and stuff like that, and our energy or ourselves are always pushing anyone that gets too close to us away and stuff like that. So that stuff does definitely hang in there, and it's no longer good for our situation now. But there are some things as a child that we do that are good that just aren't good now, basically. So yes, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. So I do want to say that I have before I go, I want to do one exercise with us really quick, and then we'll get out of here. I do have a workshop coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend, on connecting with our spirit guides, higher self, and inner child. And I did not plan that, by the way, for this class and then that to come up. It was actually really cool to see that because I made that on the 15th of last month, and then I had no clue what was the next class in this, and seeing this class, I was like, oh, that actually works out really good. So if anybody wants to get in on that, I think there's like 6 more spots left or something along those lines to get into that. It is a paid class, though. It's $40 for the workshop. It's a 3-hour workshop, and we're going to go really deep into connecting with our guides and stuff like that in all kinds of different ways. So what we'll do now is we will do a brief letter from our inner child. And does everybody have enough paper at this point to start? I know some people were probably like, well, that's when I did that self-discovery class, there were some people that used like, I don't even know, like 4 or 5 pieces of paper. And a lot of stuff. So anyway, what I want you to do at some place of your paper is I want you to write letter from my inner child. And anybody at home, if you want to do this as well, feel free to do it. So you're going to just write letter from my inner child. And right after you write that, I want you to you don't have to sit upright or get comfortable. Just close your eyes for just a second. And just allow yourself to take a couple of breaths. They can be deep, they can not be. Just feeling yourself breathe and just settling in and relaxing. And in that space, I want you to say within your head, within your mind, that you would say something along the lines of, I want to connect with my inner child. And then some of you that are visual, you may be starting to be taken to see your inner child, or you may just be feeling that connection strong as well, even if you're not visual. And then just lastly in your head, ask your inner child to work through you to help write this message down on the paper. And then you can open your eyes. And then where you can start at on your paper, I want you to just write, my inner child wants me to know, and then just start going on and on and on about what your inner child wants you to know. Even if it feels like you're making it up, just go with it. Even if it's something that you already know, just allow it. And just allow yourself to write that letter. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to do so. And if you get to an ending point of that, I want you to write, or you can also write down, you can ask your inner child, what should you be focusing on right now to help strengthen your inner child? Or what should you be working on right now to help heal the inner child. I'm going to give everyone about another minute if you need it, and then we're going to move on with one more quick exercise before we wrap it up. So you can continue writing. I'm going to talk for just a second and then lead you into one more exercise once I see when everybody's done. So I hope that everyone was able to get something out of that and able to kind of connect there when you're alone at your house and it's quiet and you're not in a weird classroom setting. It can be a little bit easier because you can kind of let loose and go through it. But any emotions that are coming through, it is important for you to allow them to pass, allow yourself to feel them, and allow them to just flow. So, last exercise we're going to do, and then we'll wrap it up. This class is usually a little bit quicker than any of the other classes, so but it's only 20 minutes early. So, what I want you to do, close your eyes real quick. I want you to bring yourself into your imagination space. So I want you just to visualize yourself sitting on your couch looking at your TV. So I just want you to see that scene. And I just want you to bring yourself into your kitchen and see your kitchen. And then last one, I want you to bring yourself outside of your house and just looking at your house. And then I want you to go into whatever space feels comfortable, and I want you to see a whiteboard that's sitting there in front of you. And I want you to see a marker sitting on this whiteboard. And I want you to ask for your higher self to come down to you. And I want you to ask your higher self to pick up that marker. And even if you don't see the higher self, I want you to just see that marker get picked up and just start floating. And I want you to ask them to write one word for you on that board. And I want you to see that word being written out. And if it ends up being more than one word, that's perfectly fine. I just got 3 words, so allow yourself to see whatever is written there. And then whenever you're done with that, you can open your eyes and you can write that word down. And you can always do that exercise at your house or anywhere else that you feel you need to. Alright, so you can do your thing. I'm just going to give a couple of announcements and then we are all set and good to go.